Howdy, howdy, and welcome to my bloody Judy with your final forgets, myself, Zachary, Patton-Garcia.
And Ian Carlos Crawford.
Yeah, and we're doing our first podcast, everybody. Look at this. A horror podcast.
Not my first podcast, Zachary.
Well, Ian's got a little bit of experience, just a tiny bit, because he's got his own podcast. You want to tell us about your podcast?
Sure. My podcast is Slayerfest 98. We have I need to count because I realized that Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and Podbean all have a different number of episodes listed. So I'm not sure, but I think it's like 160 episodes, I think. Yeah, it's about Buffy the Vampire Slayer. We've been branching out. We did X-Men this summer. Gonna go back to Buffy and start season 7 in November. Yeah. And you have been on a few times as well.
Just a couple times. I've been on one official episode, and then I think a couple of Patreon episodes.
You were on 2 official episodes.
Was
you and
I?
Alistair did a reading for.
Oh, we did a reading. I don't count any of those. We're not going to talk about that. The readings are so awful. I hate when I have to do those, but because I love you, Ian, I do them for you.
Oh. You all heard it. Zachary said he loves me.
He's our third husband. Actually, I met Ian through the podcast, actually. I think one day I was tweeting about Buffy the Vampire Slayer just on Twitter randomly, and somebody tagged his podcast in my comments, and we started talking about maybe me coming on an episode at one point. It happened. It was okay. I mean, like, we just, had our friendly greetings, and then I don't remember when we actually started talking.
Didn't we like, I think one of our drunk like streams, I think I looked through all of our texts to find out. But I think it was like, it was just DMs at first. Cause you just like randomly DM me and were like, who's your favorite final girl? Cause I think you saw me talking about.
That's right. I
might have been talking about Scream or something.
Mm-hmm.
And then I think you were just like, oh, here, this is easier, and you gave me your number. I remember thinking that we wouldn't get along, but look at us now.
Why'd you think that?
I don't know. I tend to...
It's the cowboy hat.
I mean, looking at us, one wouldn't assume that we would be people who would be so in love, Zachary.
Well, proved them all wrong. Spooky season is upon us. We've got our little spooky lights going. I feel like 2020 has thrown everybody such a curveball that time really doesn't exist anymore. And so, F it. Everybody's doing spooky season in August, September. We're recording this in September, and hopefully y'all will be listening to this October 1st is the goal. But
I mean, it's the goal, right? But who could know? Yeah, I feel like especially you and I mean, of course, as it gets closer to spooky season, it's like, ooh, let's watch more horror movies and stuff. And for this, we've been doing more horror stuff. But I feel like you and I are kind of like always on board for horror stuff.
Oh, 100%. We've done a couple live streams, just watching various scary movies. And this just seemed like the most natural next step. I really wanted to do something like this for October, and I didn't really want to do it by myself. And so my buddy Ian is the very perfect person to do this with. What is this podcast even going to be? This isn't even a podcast. This is not going to be on any. It's not. But I keep calling it a podcast. This is just a limited time YouTube web series. And I think we're just going to do a couple of recaps of some scary movies, talk about, some of the more famous series. I don't know. What are we doing, Ian?
I mean, you just said what we're going to be doing. We're going to be talking about some horror movies. We're going to be talking about some series. We're going to do episodes on specific movies sometimes. Zachary and I often are, I made this joke already in our first recording, but since Zachary already spoiled it, since we did it already, here we go again. Zachary and I are like those like businessmen in the 80s movies where they like do a bunch of coke and have 1,000 ideas. And then we're just like, yeah, that was a cool idea. And then next week we have different ideas. So we've like come up with about 8 different things we should do together. And this is the first one we're actually moving forward with. Yes. So I'm happy though. And it's more, I feel like it's appropriate. The first thing we're moving forward with is
something horror themed. So, okay, then that moves into our next topic. Then what movie would you say sets the tone for your preferred type of horror? Like the horror movies that you prefer most.
So for me, I always say that my favorite type of horror movie is like an episode of Buffy the Vampire Slayer
Mm.
without Buffy. I mean, of course, with Buffy, great. But, most horror movies don't have a vampire slayer or demon hunting girl in them. Um, I like when it's like set in like a town and there's like a killer, but it's like maybe these teens have to fight against it. I really like Scream is basically that's like made for me.
Mhm.
I like quippy dialogue along with it. I of course don't want it to be too stupid, but I want it to be silly and self-aware along with being like, I don't want these characters to die.
Mhm.
Like that's always really important to me that you like care about the characters. And usually for me to care about the characters, they can't take themselves like too seriously.
Yeah.
Um, Zachary, what would be your kind of horror?
I don't know. I mean, my very favorite horror movie is Halloween. I mean, it's such a classic, but even that, I don't know if that would necessarily set the tone for my favorite type of horror movie. I guess Hereditary is what I would say. Something pretentious, you know. I get in trouble for calling Ian's scary movies candy horror, his his favorite type, but I guess I'd call mine pretentious. You know, they've got a deeper layer to them. I do like the horror movies that are kind of set up like an episode of Buffy the Vampire Slayer. I do very much appreciate those, but I like something a little bit more. I don't know, something it's grittier, and it's gonna make me think, and it's gonna really sit with me and dig deep within my psyche as I leave the theater.
Well, the thing with both of us, I think, is that while we have like our type, we both still kind of like all kinds of horror.
Yeah,
Like I don't think either of us is like, no, I won't watch that
yeah,
if it's like a certain type, right? Like, I mean, if the trailer looks terrible, we might not want to see it,
yeah.
but I don't think either of us are like inclined to say no to a horror movie if it's like outside of that genre that's our favorite.
Oh, for sure. I wouldn't close myself off to any type of horror movie. I much less prefer the found footage ones. I mean, there's a few that I really like, but overall, found footage is something I tend to stay away from. But even that, I'm open to anything and everything.
I see. I understand that they're a little played out and that some of them are very bad, but I like found footage. The only problem with me is I'm a nana, and I'll get a little motion sick from them. When I saw the God, I can't even remember the name of the movie. I want to Quarantine. I think might be the name of it, where they're like stuck in an
Oh
apartment
yeah,
building.
it was a remake of what? It was some Spanish movie, right?
It was a remake of
Okay,
Wreck,
there you go.
but I don't know if it was called
It
Quarantine.
no, it
But
was
I should have
Quarantine.
looked this up before we recorded.
It had the chick
Okay,
from Dexter in it, right?
I think.
Yes.
But like, there's a scene where they're in the stairwell, and the guy's spinning around to like looking up and looking down, and there's like zombies coming, and I got so sick I had to walk out of the theater because I felt like I was gonna throw up. And my friend that I saw was like, "Oh, you were so scared you had to leave." I was like, "No, I thought I was gonna throw up. Like, I just had to like take a little bit of a walk."
What about the Blair Witch
So
Project? Did that make you sick? That makes
yeah, it moved, especially in. So the original I just watched on
mhm.
a like VHS tape in or DVD, I don't even remember which, in my basement with my friends, but the like remake or revival or whatever it was, that I mean, because they're moving so fast, especially towards the end, that I covered my face just so like I wouldn't look at the screen, but I could still hear it because I started getting like
Yeah.
pretty dizzy.
So what?
Which also makes me sound like an old lady, but I have a friend who got sick during Muriel's Wedding, which is like shot like that, but it's just like a romantic comedy. So I feel a little better about it.
What brought you to horror then? So what? I don't know what singular moment or movie or TV show like really got you interested in the horror genre.
I mean, I feel like, on my shirt, I don't know if everyone can see it, it says Slayer. I feel like I'm going to talk about Buffy a
It's
lot,
okay.
and I'm trying not to because I feel like I have a whole podcast about Buffy. Ian, learn something new. But I really think it's Buffy because horror used to scare the shit out of me for the longest time. Like, I feel like until I was like late teens, like I would still see it, but like I remember Scream really scaring me even though I enjoyed
Yeah.
it. And I think Buffy like more eased me into it because like right, it's still like in that genre, even though it's not like horror. It still like would be
I would
considered
consider it horror.
that. I mean,
Yeah,
right?
I think so. Definitely with a strong horror foundation.
Yeah, and like I think that really eased me into because like clearly Buffy's not scary, but also it does have the moments of like, no, I don't want this character to
Hmm.
die. When you're like, like think of like Jenny Calendar being chased by
Yeah.
Angel through the school hallways. Like it's not like scary, but you have that like, especially the first time you watch it, where you're like, oh shit, is this character gonna die? And you're like nervous for the character to
Hmm.
die. I feel like that kind of eased me into horror, and then like I really liked Scream, and I really liked The Faculty. I think The Faculty is very much like a Buffy
I
episode of
haven't
Buffy.
even seen that one.
Uh,
I haven't. We have it on our list, but we may or may not get to it. But
I know it's on our list. I assumed you saw it. Anyway, yes, but so I think movies like that, when they started becoming, because right, that was like a trend. I think Scream made that a trend of like kind of like writing wittier
yeah.
dialogue for teens in the movies, and kind of like not just making it like, oh, here's this girl getting
Hmm.
killed. Um, like of course there's always like the final girl that's you care about, but a lot of the movies, think of something like Friday the 13th. Nothing wrong with it, but it's very much like here are some teens being murdered.
Hmm.
There, you don't get a lot of personality there, and I don't know. I think that when I started realizing horror could be more, and I think, I mean, there always have been, but this become more popular, like movies like Hereditary and stuff like that. That very much, and I mean, this doesn't mean they're better or worse, but
Hmm.
whatever. But more get like the like cred because they have like very good actors in them, and they get, you know, really good cinematography and shit like that. And I think they're taken a little bit more seriously. Um, I don't know. I think, yeah, it's really Buffy. Buffy, the answer is Buffy. That's what got me into horror.
Long circle right back around to Buffy.
Yeah. But Zachary, what got you into
Oh
horror?
man, I don't even know. Probably it. I mean, mine always goes right back around to Halloween. I remember my granny Rosemary came to. See, thing with my parents is they never. I'm the firstborn, so I never had any rules as far as what I was allowed to watch or anything like that. I'm pretty sure my parents took me to the theater to see Scream, and I was like, what, two? Um, and so it's always been an everything goes. But I remember Halloween specifically. My granny Rosemary came to visit us one year, and she put that movie on, and it was on AMC Fear Fest. It was Halloween 4, and I remember that movie scaring me shitless, and Michael Myers scaring me shitless, and that's arguably one of his worst masks in that movie. So I mean, it made no sense, but. Um, my mom had a friend named Shelly, and she would always send me right down because we lived on an Air Force base, so everything's pretty safe. And so Shelly just lived right down the street, and so I remember right after that movie, my mom sent me down the street. She's gonna hate that I'm saying this, but she sent me right down the street to get a Diet Coke and a cigarette from Miss Shelly's house. And so I remember as I was walking down the street, and there's maybe I don't know, 3, 4, 5 houses that I had to pass. And I remember in between each of those houses, I could have sworn like I saw him like just standing there in the trees. And so by the time I got to Shelly's house, I would not walk my ass back home, and I made my mom come pick me up. But ever since that, I
Aww.
liked the
Precious.
feeling. A little masochistic, but I enjoyed the feeling of being scared, and I was just obsessed with Halloween after that. I wanted to watch every single one of them. I would go to Blockbuster and rent them. That led into, I don't know, every other type of horror movie, Child's Play, all of that. I don't know. It's the entire
Yeah.
broad landscape of horror is just so fascinating, and there's just so much to it that I don't know. It's endless discoveries.
Yeah, I mean, and I don't know, like, so I even think of we've done so many live streams. There's so many, like, there's always like five more horror movies you can
Hmm.
find out about, right? Like, there's always more to
Yeah,
watch, which I like. Like we watched whatever that like very bad indie horror movie, but
the
like,
trailer was so
that's something I
promising.
hadn't heard of, and but you know what I mean? Like even something
Yeah.
like that, like I hadn't heard of it till you told me about it, and it came out a few years ago. Uh, I don't know, shit like that. I like that there's always like if you look, you can find some
Hmm.
new horror movies that you haven't heard of, old
Yeah,
or new,
there's always
right?
something, and even with
I mean,
like
and doesn't mean that they're bad if because
for
you haven't
sure,
heard of them.
and even with streaming services nowadays, like streaming services are offering movies left, right, and center. There's what coming in October. We're about to have The Haunting of Blythe is it Blythe Manor, Blythe House, whatever.
Bly.
Bly. Oh my goodness, it's awful. This is already awful.
My mom.
No, Bly Manor, and then what's the other movie? Freaky. Is it Freak or Freaky? You've seen the trailer. I know you have. It's right up your alley. It's like the hot chick meets horror. She like switches bodies with. Really, you haven't heard of this one?
Oh yeah. Yes, no, that's I tweeted that looked extremely my shit. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean,
Vince Vaughn
so
is in it.
We're getting a lot coming out. Super bummed out about Candyman. I really wanted to see Candyman. I was really excited to cover it for this and pushed back to 2021. Man,
I think I also so not to sound like you, but I also feel like it's 2020 and like everything sucks. Just put things video on demand.
I don't know.
I will watch them. People will watch them.
I have mixed feelings about this because some things I do want to see in the theaters. Like I'm dying to see things in the theaters, but at the same time, I really want to see other things like Halloween Kills. So they pushed that back to 2021, right? Well, the script, from what I've heard, is already out there. I've seen a lot of reputable sources talking about the script being out there already, and like there's already spoilers are bound to come up, and between now and 2021, do we think that that movie's not going to be spoiled? And if that movie is spoiled, are people even going to still want to go see that movie? What happens if like part of that movie even leaks, like a work print or something like that?
See, but spoilers don't bother me that much, honestly. Like, I mean, I don't love them, but like it wouldn't deter me unless it's like Jamie Lee Curtis dies in the first minute, and then the fucking, then it's Judy Greer's movie. I'd be like, maybe I don't care as much, but
yeah,
I don't think, especially folks like us, like spoilers aren't going to make us not see it. So I'm okay if it's like, okay, part leaks, whatever else.
I'm trying to keep my mind free of leaks, free of spoilers, because I do want to see that in the theaters, and I think they're promising that one's going to be in IMAX too, and I think that would be really cool. But I don't know, like everything
I don't know. There's not many movies I feel like I have to see in theaters though. Like honestly, like something like Avengers, sure, that's like a cool movie to see, or like a Star Wars, sure, it's cool to see it on. And I like going to the movies, so I would love to be able to go to the movies, but just isn't gonna happen. So I'm just like put it all on demand.
I think yeah. See, it's just I'm definitely back and forth on it. Like Nia DaCosta, who did Candyman, like I would love to see Candyman on the big screen, but I would just as happily see it, if they put it out VOD. I would totally buy it. $30. People bought Trolls World Tour for $30. I can buy Candyman for $30. But like for somebody like her, like that's a big movie for her. It's going to be a big movie for her.
Right,
She probably wants it in the damn theaters, So I see the both sides of the coin, I guess. I understand why everybody's pushing their movies back, and they also want the most return on their investment. All these studios, so it's a gamble, video on demand, because I feel like $30 is a steep price. That model is more designed for families, right?
Right, and like what am I doing? I'm watching it by myself. Give me a break. I don't want to pay $30, but I would pay $30 for like Candyman, or even like a fucking Avengers movie. I would, hands up.
I would too.
Because also, what else do I have going on?
Like we don't really have any sort of set schedule, but we are going to have a lot of fun doing this throughout this October. We are going to cover whatever we want, whenever we want. Y'all are going to enjoy it. You're going to like it. You're going to have fun.
No rules.
Well, guys, that was our first episode of My Bloody Judy. So I guess this is an outro. It says on my paper outro, so that's what we're going to do now.
That's what we would call it, Zachary. Yes. I'm Ian Carlos Crawford.
My Bloody Judy. Stay tuned for the next episode. Or you know what? It should be out right now as you're watching this. You can go over there and click on it.
And Zachary, tell everyone where they can find you on social media.
Down. Well, you can find me over on Instagram at adventureszachandb, or on Twitter at adventureszachandb, YouTube Adventures of Zach and B. And Ian, where can they find you?
I gotta tell everyone that you were really shook the other day when I sent you a screenshot of our text messages, and I have you in my phone as Zachary Adventures of.
What is that? Not even a name. I don't even get a name. I'm just a.
But it's because. Wait, so it's because when I email you, when I have to email you a lot, I type in adventure. And when I have to tweet at you or anything, I type in adventure. So that's my go-to with typing in to like get a hold of Zachary is typing in the word adventure. And I kept forgetting what I had you in my phone as. So because I didn't originally have it, I changed it to that like only a few months ago. And I was like, let me just make adventures his last name so it'll fucking come up when I go to type in his name.
Oh, so
because I have like
popular.
8 Zachs in my phone.
Knows all the Zachs.
And
damn straight.
But you're my favorite.
You know,
of course.
you know what? On me. Fault's on me. Flaw me because I should have picked a different name because I don't know. Anytime I post anything, everybody thinks Alistair is B. B's my dead dog.
Yeah, I've had a few friends be like, him and his husband have a joint account, but why is it B? Isn't his husband's name?
It's way too much
like,
of an explanation.
No, it's not his husband.
Anyway, where can they find you, Ian Slayerfest?
They can find me on all social platforms at Ian X Carlos, and you can find all of my podcast stuff at SlayerFestX98. I have a YouTube channel. You can find SlayerFest98 on Spotify, Google Play, Stitcher, Podbean, Apple Podcasts, and all those places. And you can support us on Patreon.
Perfect. And with that, we bid you adieu.
Bye.